Hey everyone, Melissa from Welcome to the Woods. So I've really been trying to embrace this modern industrial vibe that I'm going for in my home, but in looking for end tables, I couldn't find anything in the store that was within my budget and that I really fell in love with. So instead, I decided to try my hand at building them. To get started, I spent a lot of time planning and measuring out my cuts on the big sheet of 8x4 birch plywood that I bought. I couldn't have done this project without the help of my sister, Anne, who let me use her workspace to cut the various pieces of plywood on my table saw. Here I am cutting mitered corners, or I guess edges, for each of them to match up and create a box. Since I don't have a band clamp, I used packing tape actually, and laid it out in long strips, and then lined up my plywood boards. You see how the edges are cut at 45-degree angles. So after applying the wood glue and brushing that on thoroughly, I could actually fold this up to create the box, which you'll see me doing here, and then securing it around tightly with the tape. I was sure to check that my boxes were square from all different angles and that my tape was holding it tightly together to let the glue dry overnight. After removing the tape, when the glue was fully dry, I used a pneumatic nailer and brad nails to connect each mitered corner together on top and the sides. Then I sanded everything down with 60 grit sandpaper. Be sure to sand with the grain of the wood. I finished with a 220 grit sandpaper and then wiped the whole thing down with this tack cloth you'll see. Next, I applied stainable wood filler to the cracks and holes in my wood boxes. Let that dry overnight and then sand off the excess with sandpaper. For the finish, I'm going to be using Heirloom Traditions all-in-one chalk paint in Amalfi to coat the inside of these boxes with 2 coats of paint. This paint has a primer and top coat built in. The stain I'm picking is from Rust-Oleum, Varathane brand, Poly and Stain in Kona. And I did need 2 coats of this product, but it recommends just doing 1. So between the coats, I used a 220 grit sandpaper to lightly sand and then applied again. The finish was beautiful and durable. These are the backs of each end table, which I painted on one side and stained on the other. So now I'm just going to nail them in on each end of the box. Time to get started on the legs. Here I'm marking where we're going to cut the 3 inches wide hot rolled flat bar steel. My knowledgeable sister graciously offered to help with welding the joints. We used the level and the square about 100 times. It was fun to learn a little bit about how to weld. After we were done, we used an angle grinder to smooth out the joints. Now it's time to paint. Since I'm inside and couldn't use spray paint, I'm instead using this great product from DecoArt multi-surface paint in the color Black Tie, which has great adhesion to slick surfaces like metal. It also dried to the satin finish I wanted. Finally, it's time to put it all together. I lined up my metal legs with the wooden box, and then I applied Loctite's PL 375 construction adhesive and let it dry overnight. The sleek profile of my end tables and the modern industrial vibe is just what I was going for. If you were impressed or inspired by this project, don't forget to click share or hit subscribe.